Hi, this is your host, Laura Powers, and I am so pleased today to have Shannon Procise on the show. She is a business connection specialist, and she is also here with her company, Business Acceleration Network. Thanks so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So I'm so excited for these conversations about the woo and the business and how they can all come together. And I really started this podcast because I feel like there's some limitations and blocks within the woo-woo community about business and that you can be successful and how much you can make. And so I connected with you and I thought this is a perfect opportunity to talk about this. So thanks so much, first of all, for being a guest on the show. And would love if you could share a little bit about your background and your company to give people some context.
Wonderful. Yes. So my first woo started with Firewalks, and after Firewalks, I started producing events. So I've produced over 400 events, and during that time, I got to really see the power of community and bringing people together, and but also this need of individuals that were in the metaphysical or natural health or even just business, whether it be green building or real estate, but not being able to connect the dots. Worked with a lot of doctors and individuals that had a powerful message, wanted to get it out to the world, but just didn't know how. And so a number of years ago, started the Business Acceleration Network, where we bring together people in the spirit of collaboration. We show them how to mastermind, how to master their pitch, how to really show up for each other in a way to help them grow and accelerate their business.
How exciting. I love that. And on a side note, I love firewalking, and it's something that not that many people have done. And I've said, yeah, walk on fire. And people are like, wait, like really? And I'm like, yeah, no, I really walked on fire. And it's so empowering. And when I did it, actually did it with Tony Robbins, and I have mixed feelings about him, but that experience was quite profound. And since this is woo, I'll just share the story. I was living in Los Angeles at the time when I got the psychic message to do this. Like, it was a very clear message, like, you need to do this firewalk thing. And I was like, what? Okay. And he was scheduled to come to Los Angeles. And so logically it's like, well, I'll just wait for him to come to Los Angeles. That's where I'm living right now. And then my guides were like, no, you need to go to Chicago. And I was like, okay, that's,
Chicago.
Have to go to Chicago, fly out there, book a hotel, the whole thing. And when I got to Chicago, it was crazy energy for me. I just lots of intense stuff coming up. And then even the firewalk, like right, so that, they get everyone all psyched up. And then at his events, I don't know how it's yours, but at his events, it's like thousands of people. Like I think there were about 3,000 people that day.
Feet, like 40 feet long.
Yeah, this really long thing of coals and like 3,000 people waiting to do it. And so you're in these lines and I'm walking up, and for some reason, the man in front of me like freaked out and like ran and stepped on my foot. And you have to be in the right mindset when you do it. So I had this moment of like, oh my God, am I like out of my mindset? Am I gonna burn? Is this okay? Like, am I still okay? And I was like, no, calm, it's okay. And then I did it and I didn't get burned, and it was amazing. But what's fascinating is, like, after the whole experience, I was chatting with my guides. I'm like, okay, why did I have to do this? And they told me it's because you died in the Chicago fire in a past life. And so I had to heal that where, or it was more powerful if I healed that where I had that strong fear of fire. And it's funny because it's not like I was consciously afraid of fire, but I mean, I think I saw with that interference of that man running, over me and everything right before, like there was definitely intense stuff coming up. So I did really feel like after that, there was this huge release of a lot of intense energy. So before we go into other things that you do, I'm curious about why firewalking and why that was significant and important.
I actually had an MD prescribe me on a prescription pad to go to my first firewalk. I had my first child at home all naturally. And when I went into the doctor, she was like, you've got to go to this firewalk. And I was getting ready to move to Florida from Washington State. And I'm like, you're crazy, I'm leaving. She goes, change your plans. And because I trusted her and respected her, I ended up changing the plans. And she goes, you don't have to walk. And when I got there, it was like there was something inside of me that just said walk. And I got so many lessons about, where I would commit to things before I was 100%. And in Firewalk, like you've got to
be fully in it. Yeah.
It's 100%, not 99, and so many lessons. And so I ended up walking, and then I got this call to carry my little baby across the fire. And I'm thinking, are you nuts? What if you, you could imagine all the fear that came through. And somebody took a picture of me walking, and literally it's like I'm looking up at the heaven. It's one of the most incredible pictures. And I realized all of these lives were transformed in an instant. I mean, it was like, for me, I just lit up in a way of possibilities of what's possible, but also to question authority, because here I'd been told my whole life, right, that I'm going to get burned and didn't. And then this was in more of a Native American one. And so we spent days doing various things of, bending rebars and breaking arrows and truss falls and lots of beautiful exercises. And so from that point, I just realized that this is work that can heal the world. And so I've worked with a number of Firewalk instructors. I've done things in Hawaii and various places. And I just fell in love with the power of even watching, even just showing up and watching that happens in people's lives.
Yeah, because just watching, and of course, before I did it, I was watching hundreds, thousands of people do it before me because of the size of the event. And yeah, it is so, just gets you to shift your ideas of what's possible, how powerful your mind is. And right before I went, even if the coals are black, they're still burning hot, right? But like literally right before I went, they pulled the fresh red coals. So they were
for
like,
you.
Oh yeah, right in front of me. So I was like, all right, well, here goes nothing. And it's so powerful to have that fear, to face it and to move through it and to know that you're okay. And so I feel like, doesn't necessarily have to be that firewalk, but I feel like the firewalk is such an incredible way to do that. And I feel that for so many of us, what is past that fear is amazing. It's all the rewards. It's the feeling of freedom. It's the feeling of expansion and possibility. And so I know for me at that time, it was really significant. And just based on the way that it happened, it was a way for me to clear out this kind of old past life junk that I wasn't even conscious of being there until that moment.
Yeah. Oh, how beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I love Firewalk stories. Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's great. So definitely, if you're listening, I encourage you to try to have that experience, and obviously make sure you do it in a safe way and with people with experience, because you can, if you don't do it right, you can get burned, and you don't want want that experience.
Make sure you don't have Band-Aids on your feet. I did one Firewalk where they said, take off your shoes, take off all your stuff, and she forgot her Band-Aids and
they burned.
It was just, I was like, the things you don't think about.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, of course it makes sense. That's going to burn, but no, it is fascinating. Like, you look at those coals and, if you just touch yourself to like a burner or something, you're going to burn so fast, and then you walk on it and you're like, oh, I mean, I felt hot, but I didn't burn. Anyway, it was very interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
I have one crazy miracle story where I actually, you're right, you have to be in a line, and this guy I always walked with, because he was our fire tender, one time he grabbed my hand, and it was like there usually was a check-in, and he just went ahead of me holding my hands. And so when I got to the other side, I felt like I was completely burned. And as the host, I didn't want to disrupt the energy, right? Because it's like, you can't go, I'm frying. And literally my friend who's captain of the Disney ship, she came up dancing, goes, walk with me, walk with me. And I whispered her in her ear and I go, my feet are fried. And she goes, no, walk with me, walk with me. I promise you'll be okay. I walked with her and I went from burnt to nothing. I ended up walking 3 more times. It was just like, there's so much magic there that, ooh. So anyway, thanks for letting me share.
No, I love that. And again, just how powerful our minds, our intentions are. And even when we know that on a level, it's still easy to forget it.
Yes.
And so I think this just keeps it front and center. And also, like you said, even just witnessing it is such a powerful thing to go through. So if you're really struggling with a lot of fear or resistance, I think a firewalk is an incredible way to literally just cathartically clear all that stuff. Yeah. So I know you've done a lot of different things. You were telling me about some events. So can you just give some overall summary of some of the things you have done and currently do with people?
Yeah, so what I've done in the past is I've worked with a number of businesses where we bring them together and we run events where we do masterminds. We always bring in the transformation piece. We love getting people the business skills that they need, whether it be legal or accounting or marketing or branding, and we'll have a wide variety of mentors that come and brain tithe. And so what this allows people to do is break bread and spend time with experts in their particular area and ask questions. And then we also bring in the personal growth piece. We've worked a lot with Bert Oliva, who's another fellow firewalker, and sometimes we'll have people eat fire, sometimes we'll have them walk on broken glass. And so really bringing in that piece of, you do the work and you learn the business, but also it's that power of raising our energy and raising our vibration and seeing what's possible. All these things that we're told that are impossible, where in our business, where in our life are we told these are impossible? And so we love creating breakthrough experiences so that they are possible.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny because at that same time in my life where I was guided to do the firework, I also was guided to learn fire eating.
So you've done that.
I've done that, and the fire performing, like, we put on your body, fire painting and things. And I just remember like thinking, God, this is the craziest thing that I'm doing right now. But it was so powerful. And I haven't done it recently. I mean, it was like once I learned it, it was like, okay, you integrated it. And I mean, I could continue to do it, but I don't need to. But it's such a powerful thing. And you also brought up in-person events or events, period. I think, now here we are in this kind of post-pandemic time. Whether you're connecting in person or digitally, there's such a power in connecting, learning from each other. And that's part of what also got me to podcast, because every single person I talk with, it's like, I feel like not only am I learning some of the knowledge pieces they're sharing, but this energetic aspect of, can absorb in a way people's courage, their ideas, their faith, all that stuff. So really connecting with others and learning from them, especially those who have modeled what you are wanting to do, is so key.
Yeah. I'm so excited about your book coming out. I don't know if everybody knows, hopefully I didn't let the cat out of the bag, but I'm like the fact that you're, sharing how you've done this for 10 years with the podcasts and it's like, think about that ripple where you're helping all these people get their messages out, and what a beautiful thing. I wanted the first one of the autographed copy.
Thank you. That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely, when I was working through the pandemic and how, for all of us, things had to change. And I've been traveling a lot, and it was like, okay, it's finally time to get this podcasting book out. I've been working on it for 4 years, but it just kept getting put to the back burner because I've been busy. But during the pandemic, I basically got the psychic message, like, no, people really need this. It's important for people. And it's not just about a podcast. It's really about like finding your voice and speaking your voice, because there's a lot of people, especially in the woo community, have these persecution fears from using their voice in past lives and being persecuted by the church or as witches or whatever. For me, I know I have some past life witch persecutions. And so it can feel very scary to put yourself out there in this way. And I remember, because I did it myself, I'm not scared anymore, but it also comes in levels. I'm sure you've experienced this too, where I'm like, okay, I got the podcast. Okay. I, have been on national TV. I've, been on one of the huge podcasts and, things like that. But I still, like, I've been trying to bring in my own television show for a while. And I feel like there's still a little bit of that, like, ooh, kind of holding it back, that I've been working on clearing.
There is different levels. I know there was a time where it was like I was on video all the time, sharing all kinds of stuff, and then got quiet for a really long time. So yeah, it's continual work. So when you work with people, do you help them break through that in some of what you're doing?
Absolutely. Like, I tell people what's going on, and sometimes just understanding why they're resistant to something or that they have this is helpful. I have one client who, I'll never forget her, I just said, you're a psychic, you're an empath. And she, I think, had felt these things, but never like put a name to it. And then I said, you were burned as a past life and a witch. And she just started bawling. Like, it wasn't even something she had a conscious awareness, but as soon as I said it, it was like, whew. And sometimes just even that statement of it is just this huge release and allows them to move forward. And that client is now a professional psychic, they're pretty big following herself as well. So it's really cool to see these things happen. So yeah, I look at people and I can tell, what is going on in their energy field, where the blockages are, why those blockages are there, as well as give them tools and resources to help clear it. And like I said, sometimes even just addressing it is enough to start
just giving it a voice,
the clearing process. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool, especially as I've unfolded with this and continue on the path. Like, I'll bring up one client who, he's public, so I can share what he's shared, but his name is Mark Gober, and he came to me a couple of years ago. He heard me on a podcast, and then he listened to all my podcast episodes, and then he booked a session. And I said, you're going to be working in kind of spirituality. And he was a Silicon Valley tech partner. So this was like very out of left field for him. And I said, you're going to write a book and eventually this is going to be your job, your work. And he was kind of like, yeah, I could just feel him reacting, and then a year later he wrote the book, and then, a year later it was released in a bestseller, and he just released a second book, and he has quit his work in that traditional tech field and is now focusing completely on spirituality and consciousness. So, and he has a podcast now too. His book is called An End to Upside Down Thinking. So it's really neat to see these things unfold. And I'm sure you've had this experience too. This is the time now too. Like, I feel like everyone's being called right now, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast. So I know you have a real strong focus on connections, which I think is key, because when we're trying to do all these things together, on our own, it can feel overwhelming. And sometimes just even knowing that there's other people that are going through these things or can relate just gives you strength. So what got you to focus on connections and making connections, particularly in business?
I would have to say a few different things. The biggest thing was, a time growing up and feeling alone. I was in a foster home for a little bit, and it was like that first the first family that they placed me in. The love and the commitment and the things that they surrounded me with was just so beautiful to have people that didn't really know me express and show up that way. And as I grew up, there were moments of being lonely or going through challenges. And I just got, you know what, we don't have to do this. We don't have to be alone. And that there are so many people that are out there willing to help, that are already at a place of being able to tithe and give back, or this is what they do for work. They're a coach or these aspects. And that all it took was to be able to ask, to be able to invest in myself. At one point, I had like 9 coaches for parenting, for financial, for, intuitive. I was sharing with you beforehand, it's like before I would do an event, I would call my intuitive advisor to say, what could possibly go wrong? And how do I prevent that ahead of time? And so just being committed to helping others realize that they don't have to be alone, and creating that environment of resources so that it makes it easier for them to ask. Because I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. And I know I did in the past too, is being vulnerable and sharing where, this muscle isn't very strong, or I'm struggling with this. And so putting people in an environment where they feel safe to share, they're taught how, we also teach people how to manage conflict. Like, that is a thing that's so prevalent in our world, and we're not taught in schools. We're not taught, most people run. I was a runner. And so really just teaching people how to navigate change, how to navigate conflict, how to be able to ask, and if you can't help them, how to be able to respond when you can't help people and not feel that energetic burden. So there's a lot of experiences where I just was like, it feels like my life's work of being inclusive. And sometimes I'm wondering, is this really, is this really the way to be? Because sometimes it's hard being inclusive. Not everybody is, we're not wired for that, but somewhere in my DNA, I feel like I just want people to know that they don't have to be alone.
Yeah, it's such a powerful thing. And also to be surrounded with those who are supporting you. I mean, that's key. It's not just being around any people, but those who can relate and support. And, I feel like those of us who are older souls who've had this experience, we understand there's infinite abundance. There's infinite abundance available to us. And those that I think are younger are still in that kind of material perspective of a lack, and that there's only so much. There's only so much, and there's a limit. And I was doing a channeling with Nikola Tesla, which is really fascinating. And he gave this really brilliant thing, and it just was like, that's so great. He said most people in life, they're just trying to get their piece of the pie. Right. They're just like, what's my piece? And that's what I can have. And then he said, when really there's an infinite number of pies. And I was like, you're right. You can just make more pie. There's always more pie, or there can be.
Wow.
And I just thought that was so brilliant, and get us to just reframe. But I do feel like if you're around a lot of people that are in that kind of struggle mentality, I call it the crab mentality, you put crabs in a bucket and one tries to get out and the other crabs will pull, then it is really important to get out of that and find those who can understand and really feel and believe like, hey, there's enough for all of us. We don't have to be competing for this perception of a limited amount of resources.
And that was a big pivot, I big pivot in my life when I started the network was because I was, in a change and just ended up closing a company and kind of what you would consider rock bottom. And I knew that in order to go up, I had to surround myself with people that were already having that level of success, and didn't matter where I was at, they were into lifting people up. And so I loved, and that's what's so powerful about what you do with podcasts and helping people with podcasts, because it's like, think about the people you get to interview. I mean, when people get on, like you could probably pick up the phone and you've probably been able to get people to interview. And I know with me with events, like the people I've been able to get to come to events, it becomes a win-win, but it helps elevate, it helped elevate my energy and get back, in that space again of abundance.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so key. And this is one of the reasons why I launched this podcast in particular, is I just feel like within the spiritual community that there's a lot of dealing with the sort of martyr pattern, which includes not receiving, which includes finances, and that it doesn't have to be that way. And even whatever is happening in the world, sort of in the collective, that it doesn't have to be that way for you. I mean, like in my case, this year of the pandemic, which could have been awful in terms of business. I mean, it's had its own challenges in other ways, but it's my best year yet. Yeah, exactly. So I just want to put out these messages to let people know, whatever you see on the news, whatever is happening overall, that doesn't have to be the case for you. And because I believe in this idea of abundance and infinite, that the more of us do well, it's like we all lift each other up. This idea of a rising tide lifts all ships. So that's specifically wanted to feature people who also are having that success, just to show like, look, this can happen, and give people tips for how to create that. So I'd love if you can share whatever it is that you've done that you feel has helped you, particularly in this year, because it has been a challenging year in terms of the collective, the whole, in terms of, finances.
Yeah. So the one thing, I had to rearrange my house internally, just to let you know. I had to really look at what were my priorities, and what, both from a financial standpoint to a personal standpoint, where do I want to put my energy? I feel like this was a big clean out. It was like getting busy in all the hustle and bustle. From a business standpoint, really tying into the collaboration piece. Mastering your pitch and your message. I mean, the either what you're saying is magnetic or repulsive, and there's kind of, I know there's probably a medium, but I found that when you are clear on what it is that you're looking for, or where you're going, and you can articulate that, the clearer the question, the clearer it is that you can receive it. And then the other piece is to I feel like when you give, things come back in various ways. So finding places to give. And this year, because we couldn't do events online, we started a Love Your Neighbor program. And so this is just a virtual program, and we're literally like giving tips on how to build your home-based business, giving tips on where to find grant money, giving tips on in case of emergency, talking about, I've got an expert with a family office on what to do with some of your finances and managing your cash flow. And so finding that it was fascinating, because like once we opened this up, it was like I got a great big contract. And so really just finding that space of where can I give, knowing that source will provide. And so that's a couple of my things.
I love that. That's incredible. Yeah. And I'd love that you bring up, be clear on what you're asking for. I think this is so key, that so often people are not getting good results, but they're also not really clear in what they're trying to bring in. And the analogy I give, it's kind of like going to a restaurant and just asking for some food. Well, who knows what you're going to get, right? I mean, you have to like say, yeah, I want the steak medium rare and this sauce, or, whatever that is. Maybe it's a vegan thing, but just be really clear. And too often people are really vague with what they're intention setting for. So And I've seen this a lot with finances. I'm asking for more money, and then and also if you don't know what it's for, that can be a challenge. But then
Yes.
you find some money on the ground or whatever. I mean, it could be it's a very small amount, and your prayer is definitely answered unless you are really clear and specific on what you want.
The other piece is taking that, like I've really taken a lot more time to kind of write into existence what I've wanted. So that piece has been really powerful. And then counting all of the little blessings, like really focusing on all of the good and just, oh, I like this, more of this, please. Just really keeping that energy on the good.
That's such a good point. One of the things I started during the pandemic, which I think is really a part of why I have had as good of a year as I've had, is every night before I go to bed, I do a little mini manifesting exercise. And it doesn't have to be long. I do a few different things. I see what feels intuitively like the thing. One of the things is I'll write down, like, what are the buzzkills? What are the things in my life that are not feeling good? And it could be simple, like a cluttered part of my house, or a pair of shoes I don't like, or whatever, it could vary a lot, but just writing those down and then kind of brainstorming things that could shift it literally from actions to asking the angels for help to maybe book an emotion code session on it, or whatever that is, to clear out blocks. And then I also have been writing lists of gratitude. So you brought up the gratitude, what I'm grateful for, past, present, and future. I'm grateful for, here's what I've already had, here's what I have right now, here's what's coming in, as if it's in the moment. So these kinds of things, I think, sometimes helps so much, even just in little chunks. Like, you don't have to do a full on like manifesting weekend or week or whatever. Just do little bits, and it makes a big difference. And I'm just getting to mention, I'm getting guided to do a 5-week course on manifesting for the new year, and that'll be like, the course of time will be like an hour a week or whatever. It's not like a significant amount in terms of time commitment, but it's amazing how profound, when you get clear and you do this consistently, what comes in.
And to have somebody like you facilitating in a group, I found that group energy is so
powerful.
It's just like turning, like plugging it into a light socket. So wow, what a gift.
It's like the magic circle. So then when I teach these group psychic development classes, it's the same, like, or my podcast course, because it's a group course. It's like, look, I'm here, I'm teaching, I'm happy to share, but it's also so much of this magic is like what you said, from the collective, from the group. And that's what I think is so powerful about what you do, is recognizing and understanding these connections and how powerful they are. And it's always amazing to me that a lot of the connections that come in, like, it may take a while, or you may not know exactly when it's going to come to fruition, or, when something is going to come from it, but just do the work, follow the intuition, and things will happen, like, in profound, incredible ways. So I love that you have really worked with intuitives to help you with, your businesses and events, because I feel like that's an area where there's sometimes it's like, here's your business and here's the operate and here's the intuitive psychic, and they're like not coming together. And I'm like, no, it's the best when you merge them. And yes, learn the tools, learn the business tools and all the technical stuff, but also do this other thing and then combine them. That's the best approach.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, you as an intuitive, because you have a business. I mean, it's one thing to have a psychic business, but you also are running multiple businesses within your business. You have a team. You understand so many different things from a human perspective, right? So it's like you can give real life experience to some of those pieces that for me, I'm sitting here going, God, what a great gift to have a psychic that gets business,
Yeah, I think we tend to attract whatever is where we are. So, in the beginning, I wasn't doing that, but as I got more developed in my business, it became a natural fit. Like, oh, well, that's, I know about this area. And so from experiencing on the other side, how to hire people and, all the things that come with business. So now with the pandemic and, in-person stuff, at least not happening or happening very minimally, how have you shifted and how can people connect with you? What are you offering now and moving forward?
And so right now, the Love Your Neighbor is a primary way that we kind of are keeping our community going. It's at thegreatestcommand.com. We meet a couple times a month, and it's just really we have some powerful people that come together, and some people come in and out, and it's beautiful. So that's been a primary focus. And then also the trailblazers. So within the Business Acceleration Network, I have a Trailblazers tribe. And so we meet together to mastermind a couple times a month. And really, we have an ongoing community where we're celebrating successes and bragging and all the things that we don't normally do in other business things. I'm like, this is a place to brag. Tell it, let's share all the good news. And for me personally, I'm also working on a book on collaboration and impact, and just sharing kind of my journey on that process, and also helping people. I've partnered with a place where instantly we're getting people on Fox and ABC and NBC. So I'm just helping kind of levitate people during this time to be able to stand out, because right now everybody's going online. I mean, it's just like.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because for years I've been like, here's Zoom, let's do this thing. And a lot of people just didn't have the tag and they didn't know. And now, like, I mean, on the plus side, it's just like everyone's doing it. And it's taken away that kind of fear of it, at least for the most part, because it's so prevalent. But yeah, it's great in some ways. I definitely miss that in-person element, but what it has done is really opened up the opportunity to connect with people wherever, because I was doing this for a long time, but not everyone else was. So, now it's like everyone's on Zoom. Yeah,
The
that's
global
amazing.
reach, I think, is really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredible to watch, and this, in a way, just helping us to really feel that connection that has already been there in this way, through the ability to connect with tech. And that's why I think podcasting and being on social media and all these things is so important. And even though we can get Zoom fatigue and things like that from being on a screen all the time, at the same time, I'm like, thank God for it, because I'm such a social person that when the shutdown happened, if I hadn't had Zoom, I think I would have like gone crazy not to be able to connect. And really, hosting a podcast was a godsend for me, because it gave me like a reason and a structure I recorded a lot of podcasts during the pandemic. So let's talk about self-care, and how do we, as people that are sensitive, really take care of ourselves in general, but especially during this time when there is so much coming externally that can feel traumatic, that can feel overwhelming, heavy, anxiety creating, etc.
Yeah. So self-care, obviously the basic of drinking a lot of water, and constantly, like I live on the ocean, being in water, taking baths, like really connecting with that element of water. It's a great purification. I think, I tell everywhere I go, it's like, if I get in the pool, I got to dunk my head. I'm not into this, make your hair look nice. Like, I think I can feel a shift that happens. My kids, I'm like, you got to dunk 3 times at least. So, so water is really big right now. I think turning off the noise, like the biggest thing that I've gotten is, and I don't know where you're at on this, but there's a third dimension of duality and right and wrong. And so my self-care is doing everything I can to mitigate that, and be in a place of love and connecting where, and trusting that whatever information I need is going to be presented to me, and not having to go and seek, and not having to go and spend hours on, this particular problem. It doesn't mean that I am blind, but it's just really being intentional. And the part of also self-care is, I love yoga. I love one of my favorite, if you're at home, boho yoga is, she does hundreds of free videos. She's traveling the world, and their heart is so pure. And so I've found that that's a great place to really just drop in and connect, and kind of get rid of the noise. But being really, right now in this time, the distractions, like identifying what is a distraction from me being here, and what is a distraction, or where is it causing separation and this duality. And I know we live in the 3rd dimension, but how do we walk in the 5th dimension?
No, I love that. And I really see it right now with politics and news, like, and it's so hard because I have some pretty serious past lives in politics. So I'm like wired that way, and I have to keep being like, wait, I don't have to get into that, like that was that life, or that was it. I don't have to get pulled in to this drama. And I agree, I've set that intention with my guides, like if something's really important for me, just please make sure that I know about it, and I know that I will. So this is not about, having blinders on and not being aware, but at the same time, so much of what happens is people getting pulled into this, and it's not helping. Like us putting our attention on this isn't helping the situation any. And then we're just in this kind of stress state, anxiety, or even if we're not actively stressed, we're at least not focusing on creating
on our
purpose,
purpose,
our purpose. And so this is a really great reminder, and something that even though I know consciously, I still have to catch myself, because the tendency, especially during, like, as we're recording this, it's right after the election, and we're still, waiting on the presidential results. And it's just, it's a fascinating time, and the collective really wants to get pulled into this. And so it's even harder, especially if you're empathic, to pull out. But at the same time, it's more important than ever for us not to get pulled into that, I think.
Yeah. And one of the things, like, there's some things that are really showing up as if each person is significant, and knowing that if I'm here interacting with somebody, what is there that I can learn, or what is there that I get to be a catalyst for? And my daughter's 21 right now, and it's kind of hurting me because she's finding her voice. I love that. I love that she's a research person. She's in college, and so she will not post anything without research. And then I have this beautiful spiritual tribe that has known her since she was a child, and many of them are disowning her, are banning her, are not even listening to her. And so, I've been for like weeks going, as soon as you get done with your essays, I want to interview and actually share that how can we have this difference and be present to our future leaders. Because to me, these are, like, she shared wisdom with me where I've been like, this is kind of what I think, but just by showing up and listening and being present and being open and going, this person's important to me, and I know she's my daughter, but just trying to do that with everybody we meet. And even if we don't agree, just loving them and blessing them, and trusting that whatever knowledge they're going to get that they need is going to come to them to make the best decision.
Yeah, and to just keep remembering that everyone's human, and we need to have that forgiveness and compassion. Still, strong boundaries are often important, but at the same time, just to remember humanity, and we're all in a different place in our spiritual development and learning different things, and we all have things to teach each other. It's an important thing to remember right now, especially when there is so much division. And I feel like so much of the division is exactly what we're talking about. It's about this perception that there's not enough and there's a limit, and so we have to, like, battle it out or whatever instead of like, no,
I like that perspective. Yeah, because it is. It's when you look at it, now that you say that, it's like when you boil it down to it, there's a lack. Wow.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of these disagreements come from that premise.
Yes.
That view,
you
belief.
Nailed it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when you're not in that perspective, then you're like, guys, it's so clear that's not the case. But not everyone's there. And I wasn't there for a while. I mean, like, for me, my sort of opening and awakening happened during the recession. So I was absolutely in that place. And by the way, I was very involved in government politics. My master's is in poli-sci. So I was not only in that mindset, but fully in the structure that has been created around a lot of that. So I understand, been there. I feel like I'm not there now, but we do have to have compassion, understanding that we're all in different places, but we can still recognize, okay, that's what's going on. Well, this has been so fun. Such a lovely conversation. I love these kinds of free-flowing conversations, because I feel like there's so much wisdom and everything that just comes up when we can just have, these open conversations. So would love to see if there's anything else you'd like to share, as well as how can people connect with you?
Yeah, I just want to remind people that everything we need is here, just what you were sharing, and be courageous to ask if there's something that you need. Reach out and ask, and get involved and get engaged and connect, because there are lots of communities, lots of organizations, lots of people that that are living in this abundance place, and they would be happy to contribute. And so you can connect with me at meetshannon.com, and all my social media is there. You can book time, you can text. I have a bunch of free gifts there. So meetshannon.com.
I love that. And yeah, if you're really struggling and that lack of energy or mentality, I think that idea that we really are in a way an average or really influenced by those around us. So even if you don't have anyone in your direct circle who you feel is in that abundance kind of opportunity mindset, then yeah, connect with Shannon, connect with me, connect with anyone who is that way. That's really going to help you pop out of that. And so much of what happens is because of our perceptions and belief. I heard something recently and I was like, oh my God, that's it. That um, our beliefs are just an agreement we have with reality. Like, and when we don't have to agree, we can change our agreement. And of course, this is harder when you're involving other people, like, with others, they might have their own agreement. So if you can't like change your agreement about them necessarily, but for yourself in terms of how you're experiencing the world. And I've seen this with emotion code or various things that clear and shift energy, where I'll just do something that helps to change a belief, and like immediately what is attracted to me changes, and therefore my perception of real or how things are, and I'm putting that in quotes, changes. So it's really profound. Well, thank you, Shannon. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for spending the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everybody should work with you, because, sorry, I just have to add this last thing. I think that part of my rock is having a psychic that was there to kind of guide me as I'm getting my legs, or when I'm wobbly, or when it's challenged. And so I really hope that people that are listening to this can reach out to you and add you to their team.
Oh, thank you. That is lovely. I so appreciate it. And I feel the same about you. I know we just recently connected, but I love everything that I'm hearing. And when you can, do the firewalk. So I hope that you are going to be planning on some of those when we're able to as well.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. If you'd like more information about me, you can go to my website, healingpowers.net. You can find me at Twitter at @LauraPowers, Instagram at LauraPowers44, and on Facebook at Healing Powers. Many blessings.